Hey guys, it's me. I am in a not so ideal location for this right now, but I kind of don't give a fuck. I'm just gonna make this video. I have been away from YouTube for the past few months in order to try and center myself after realizing that I was in a deeper level of programming than I was conscious, which is, of course, how the deprogramming process goes. But I had a big breakthrough that caused me to take a step back. I detached from the people closest to me and spent a couple months wandering around the street yelling a lot about trauma because everything was so overwhelming and I was still stuck having to deal with people who were extremely triggering for me, who I was trying to get away from but couldn't without giving up other things that were helping me to detach from them. So it was just a very difficult thing, but I have managed to get myself into a somewhat better place physically and emotionally. And I've just been waiting for the moment when it felt like time to do this, and I think now is the time, so here I am. I can't barely see my reflection right now, so I hope this video is not too awkward looking. I'm going to try and talk about what's been going on in some more detail. I have to be really careful though, um, as always, but especially now, I have to be really careful. So I'm just going to try to say what I think I can actually get away with saying. I, upon detaching from the people I was closest to, including my now ex-husband, I went through a period of intense dissociation from both my attraction to men and to my identity as a non binary person, and found myself in a space of intense identification with um, the lesbian label. And finally, I'm starting to recenter and find that I am indeed pansexual and non binary, that I am the whole rainbow, just the entirety of the rainbow. And I always have been and probably always will be, and that's okay. Um, I don't want to go too into it, but that's been one of the biggest things that I've been dealing with is trying to find my groundedness around that. So I still identify as non-binary, but I've actually been feeling like I should go back to the name Katie again. For 10 years, I have gone back and forth between the names Dylan and Katie, and I feel ridiculous about it, but it's recovery from DID. And there's so much I could say, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and say that this is something that is coming up. I feel at this point like I could be non binary and queer and go by my birth name, and that I have to let go of the name Dylan because it just represents a dissociative wall to me that seems insurmountable no matter what I've tried to do to feel like myself and go by that name. There's just this block. But it's starting to click for me that when I go by Katie, I do feel on a deeper level like I'm more me, and it makes me feel more vulnerable, which is why I've avoided it. But I think that I need that vulnerability again. So I think for now I'm going to go back to that name. But I think that it's important that I maintain a non-dual perspective on it, and that I remember that I can be both at the same time, and it's okay. and also that people don't need to know that about me, that I could go by a feminine name and people can assume that I'm a cis woman, and I don't really need them to understand. People I'm closest to can, and that's enough. So my phone is going to run out of battery soon, and I actually thought that might be helpful because it might keep me from saying too much at once. So I'm going to see what else do I have to say. A lot of what triggered me to go into this deeper space of awareness of programming was an acid trip. I had an acid trip for the first time in several years that I chose to take, where I don't even know how to begin explaining this. When I peaked, there was a moment where everything stopped, where there was nothing, just stillness, and it was just me and my father. Our souls became one. I had gone into the trip wanting to try to understand my parents. I wanted to know what the question was on my soul. That was the most important thing for me to know, the thing that I wanted to know more than anything in the world. I saw that these things were one, and I wanted to know what that question was. I found that the question was, are my parents human? And I meditated on this, and when I peaked, there was this moment of stillness. Like I said, I felt my soul become one with my father. I faced my father, and then suddenly I left my body, and I know how this is going to sound, but I experienced about 30 seconds of his consciousness when I was a child. And in this memory experience of his consciousness, I was upstairs in the house I grew up in, and he was standing in the doorframe of the downstairs, going out into the living room and kitchen area. He was opening the door and then just standing there and considering things for a minute. And I felt what he felt. I saw what he saw when he saw me. I saw my mother through his eyes, which was the weirdest thing. I could not even begin to express how weird that was. And I saw what he saw when he saw some of his victims of a particular kind. And I can't really talk about this more because I'm going to freak out if I think about it too much. But I felt this. And I also felt things from my mother's perspective, and I felt things from my mother's perspective. My grandmother was one of my worst abusers. And anyhow, the main thing I felt though was my father, and it blew my mind. I really lost my shit for a while over it, but it freed me to heal on a deeper level. So people can make of that what they will. This is MK Ultra we're talking about, so if you've listened to my channel and you believe me, then LSD and shared consciousness should not be necessarily taboo topics, but yeah, it was. I've never experienced anything like it, and I probably never will again. I don't want to take psychedelics again. I've taken psychedelics a couple times since then, in smaller doses, but now I'm just smoking weed and trying not to mess with anything else because I don't want to fry myself worse than I've already been fried. But yeah, acid is a hell of a drug, and that did happen. I swear on my life, I felt what it was to be my father. It was like time traveling and becoming fully psychic at once. I have theories about it, lots of theories, but I'm just gonna go ahead and leave it at this for now and say that if you are a survivor of RAMC, I recommend extreme caution in taking psychedelics, but I also recommend keeping a somewhat open mind because even though it might drive you insane, if you survive it, a trip like the one I had then could really help you find a deeper level of healing.